Oh, when I was a wee young lad and YouTube was new for me, at least in terms of uploads, I uploaded this abomination here.
Okay, I decided to do a real quick one since I have free time on my hands at the current moment.
Jesus
Which doesn't
H.
mean anything
Christ.
to you guys, people
Holy
who
Jesus.
just have
What is that?
weird,
What the
dark
fuck is that?
attributes about.
Yeah, that's some crystal clear audio quality. Um, God, I made it years ago. I was tired. I was, well, my usual disjointed self, but I wanted to make a something of a remake. I remade a couple other of my Sith Lord ramblings because they're not up to my own standards, which, trust me, are quite low. Um, so here we are, another Sith Lord ramblings on Darth Ruin. And as before, I have to say that there's not a lot known about him. Um, this is a true Sith Lord ramblings. Just my thoughts, my ideas, my wishes, my hopes and dreams, and how they're usually dashed. Basically, the only thing we have about Darth Ruin is some kind of. Where did most information come from? Encyclopedias or uh, one of those things, like those atlases. Sometimes came up with some info because they'd show like this is the extent of the new Sith Empire led by Darth Ruin, who was etc. etc. Now, the thing that always interests me about Darth Ruin, and I'm kind of reiterating points, so you know, give me a break. Um, he is considered, at least by Legends canon, the only good canon, uh, one of the Lost 20, I think it is, Jedi Masters who've reached the point of being a Master of the Order. Someone who is past their trials, they were a Padawan, they became a Knight, they reached Masterhood, and they, I think, have to join the Council. I could be wrong on that. Again, off the cuff knowledge that I have. Um, and Fannius, as his name was, as all great lords of the Sith were known as Fannius. Although to be fair, Sheev isn't much better. What interests me about him is how basically you have to take a little bit of retroactive continuity, because at this point, the galaxy is pretty much in a good spot. Um, the old empires have fallen. We have to talk about Valkorian's shit, because that's the most recent one in terms of the new Sith Empire. So that fell at some point, thank Christ. And so it doesn't really make sense that Fannius decides to reconstitute an empire in his own image and ideals. But the only information we have to go off of is, I think it was Pena? Someone who was really deep. I think it was Pena, yeah. Who came up with kind of the concept and some of the basic ideals of what Darth Ruin was and is. And basically, he saw the character as somewhat as of a Darth Treya character. Yes, I'll get to her eventually. And she, Fannius basically has that kind of contemplative, breaking people kind of mentality, seeing how far they can go, torturing them on a mental, spiritual fucking level. And, but still, I don't. It's weird for me. It's hard for me to really grasp because I like the idea of Darth Ruin. It's just we don't have enough information to really understand what the fuck was going on in his head. Because he leaves the Jedi Order, he takes some Sith knowledge with him, and then he discovers more Sith knowledge, we have to assume, out in the galaxy, and he picks up all these little remnants of the Sith who have fell before him. Could be Vitiate stuff, could be ancient Exar Kun stuff. We're just given kind of a vague idea that there are remnants all over the galaxy, and lo and behold, he found them, and he brought them together. He took some Jedi with him, and that's not considered. Is it considered? There's the first schism, the second, the Great Schism, the third and barely talked about schism. And the fourth schism. He might actually be the fourth schism. Again, off the cuff, but I'm not sure. Regardless, he takes people with him, Jedi who turn into Dark Jedi who become Sith. There is a difference. Shut up. And he forms the quote unquote new Sith Empire. But what's ridiculous to me, and okay, again, he is a solipsist, and the only. I researched solipsisms a couple years ago for school, actually, before I even read Darth Ruin's wiki, and I was like, oh, I know what that is. Basically, the ideal of a solipsism is you're in your own head, and the only thing you as an individual can be sure exists is yourself and in your own head. Everything else outside your head could be non-existent, might not be real. The only thing you can be sure of is what you think. It's kind of like that quote, you think, therefore you are. And it's taking that to the extreme. How the hell do you apply that to a Sith and make that like a major plot point? Yeah, don't ask me. But we get the idea, based on some very tertiary information, that he's kind of a psychotic loon who pushes his apprentices and acolytes to the very edge, trying to get them to, I don't know, play Darth Trea's game of which one of you can do the most loony thing, who can I break in the most profound physical, spiritual, mental way to make you come out as something different, something that I want to mold you into. Except he's not like Trey. He's not seeking to decimate the Jedi and the Sith or kill the Force. He's just kind of he's like if you took Sidious and gave him a little bit more of Trey's personality, which I guess, can make him scary in his own right, but again, this is all kind of conjecture. What intrigues me about him is how you take a Jedi Master and they fall so far and they create what is essentially an empire that is immediately surgent because the Republic clearly has no idea how to handle peacetime. Because every time the Republic goes to war, they consolidate, they work strategically, tactically to take down whatever enemy is assaulting them. But then in peacetime, they fall apart, they become bogged down in politics, they become more corrupt, money, I'm not going to get into all of it, but, I mean, a giant galaxy-wide government like theirs is, I'm sure, to have problems, but it just seems like peace ruins the Republic, even the New Republic. And I mean, it's kind of ironic. Star Wars, no one goes and watches Star Peace. But what I'm trying to say is that with his immediate successes, you would think he would capitalize or have more said about him, but no. All we get is, well, his students got so pissed off with his mannerisms and his solipsisms and his attempts to break them and push them that they all gathered together and basically killed him. And as with all Sith empires, once the Emperor is dead, there is no clear line of succession, so they all fall apart into little warlord fiefdoms and everything, etc., etc. Eventually you get the Dark Brotherhood, or Dark Brotherhood. That is something completely different. Brotherhood of Darkness, Lord Khan, and all that. That's way down the line. And this begins the Republic Dark Ages. 1,000 years of bullshit throughout the galaxy. Ruin is intriguing. I wish we knew more about him, because I think... what I imagine, and this will never happen because Disney's full of shit, and the people they have making stories are full of shit, and no one knows how to capitalize on good ideas anymore. If we had a story where we had a Jedi, a master, someone who had achieved the highest ranks. I mean, actually, the story is kind of similar to Lord Khan's when I really think about it, but that's besides the point. Someone who reaches the high echelons of the Jedi Order, Republic's at peace, but he's unsatisfied with his position. And he goes and he learns Sith knowledge, dark side knowledge, and he thinks to himself, oh, you know what? I actually like this side more. He leaves the Order, he forms a power base, and he goes to war against the Republic, really with no apparent background of violence or pain or suffering or conflict or personal interest in really ruling beyond the fact that he found some sort of philosophical point of view that led him to believe that the Sith or the dark side was the correct choice, at least for him, to wage war on the Republic and the Jedi Order. I think that would be interesting. We'll never see that, at least not with Darth Ruin. I'm sure we'll see a Darth Ruin because no one in Disney's verse has taken that name yet, so at least as far as I know, if someone has, please don't tell me. I don't care. Um, and I mean, besides that, having an Umbaran actually be a Sith makes a lot of sense since the Umbarans are a naturally kind of mysterious and uh, dark side leaning kind of species, an alien species, obviously near humans. Um, I don't exactly know what they were like in Clone Wars. Again, me and 3D Clone Wars have a sordid history. I've watched some of it. Some of it I completely skimmed over because I just don't care. Um, I'm interested in the least talked about Sith because I feel like each one of them deserves a story. Like, I don't know, Darth, what is it, Vectivius or whatever? Like, yeah, he sounds kind of interesting, especially the way Lumia puts it, and when she's trying to convince Jason Solo to return to the dark side. But I like the story, the books imply themselves. Lumia could be half lying about Vectivius' life, or that Vectivius even existed, because it's a little too good to be true. A Sith who is kind of like along the lines of what I think a Sith could do, just a being who's like, I have all this power, but I don't need to, commit blood sacrifices or murder entire schools of children or launch a crusade against the Republic. This is just the path I've chosen. Um, I don't know if there's really a lot to talk about there. Ruin, I feel like there's a lot to talk about because he changed on a philosophical level. Anakin, he fell out of desperation. Sidious was born clearly a psychopath. He even played Plagueis to teach him. Plagueis was molded from a young age. He had his own background. He wasn't, very happy with his upbringing. Not a lot of light there. Uh, Vitiate was, again, born a psychopath and decided, I want to rule the universe, become a god, eat the universe, and then raise a family on Zakul. It's...
A god has no family.
Oh, man. Let's see, who else? Who else has a clear reason why they fell? Nihilus experienced the horrors of Malachor 5 and fed on that pain and that suffering to stay alive. And after that, he was just consumed by his hunger for more and more of the Force. Scion joined the Sith. We don't exactly know his background. It'd be nice to know a little bit more about Scion, but then his pain and his anger kind of kept him all together. Exar Kun was kind of power hungry, and he didn't like that he was being, in his own mind, held back, and he was clearly one of the most powerful Jedi of his time, and he wanted the acknowledgement and the position and the power. And when someone, his master and the Jedi, didn't give it to him, he's like, well, fuck you, then I'm just gonna go find it myself. His arrogance and his pride. All of them don't really have a philosophical point of view of changing their position or their view. All of them, on some level, they want power, they want prestige, they want their egos stroked. Some of them have anger that's boiled over, their wrath, and the dark side is a clear, easy fix for their problems, and they get attached to it, they get seduced by it, and they get kind of chained to it. Ruin, Phineas, he has a philosophical point of view. He changed not because he was angry, not because a loved one died, not because the Republic needed him and it was the only way to save it was to use the dark side. He didn't lose anybody. He didn't, none of that. He wasn't necessarily born, I guess, a psychopath. I mean, it could be argued because, again, we don't know anything. But at least on a surface level, he had a philosophical change of heart. Maybe even that is a bit too far. God, it just came back to me, yeah. Well, Pena describes Ruin as being pure evil. Is that what he said? Something along those lines, but okay, well, obviously I'm trying to remember some aspects of Ruin's character, but really, if you look at Ruin then, as a solipsist, someone who only believes in their own thoughts, their own ideals, kind of that they are their own existence in and of themselves, and that they can't trust anything outside of themselves. Ruin, I guess, he's interesting because even if it's not really a change of heart, maybe if he was born the way that he was, it's like having a Sith born into a galaxy where your only choice is to be a Jedi, and then deciding that you will be the one to make that other option an option. In a way, you could see him as almost like a savior figure within the Sith. Not that he is one. I mean, he's a clearly diabolical lunatic. But, I don't know. It's just quick and easy kind of view of the character. As for a character that has very little said about him, very little details, books, writings, materials, all sorts, he's fascinating. I find him a completely fascinating character, and I wish that they had the ability to really explore him when Legends was still being written for and the universe was mostly cohesive. And I mean, as the video opened with, you can't help but find his revision of the Sith Code to be utterly fascinating. There's something oddly unique about Ruin, something that kind of draws me in, at least personally, because he took the Sith, the concept of it, his own philosophical point of view with his solipsisms, he applied it to the Sith, and he made it a completely sort of unique, singular view in and of and for himself. And of course, the Sith, the Jedi who fell with him, they had to kill him to take it to a more orthodox Sith viewpoint of, power, passion, strength, power, victory, over his obsessive, self-absorbed, self-reflective, self-existent kind of self, his philosophical, demented view of things. But anyway, there's not a lot to say about Ruin. I wanted to say what I wanted to say, and I said it. I'm glad to finally have a revision of that old video. And what do you guys think of Ruin? Tell me. I'm more than willing to read and respond to anyone's views or ideas or thoughts. And if you see that Patreon and you feel like helping out, go ahead and go there. No. But seriously, thanks y'all for listening in, and I'll see ya. Yeah, I'll see ya. God, I sound like every dumbass YouTuber. I'll be back.